Turkey is a fascinating country with a rich cultural heritage, beautiful landscapes, and delicious cuisine. It is located at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, making it a unique and diverse place to visit. But this video will not be talking about Turkey's sight and sounds. We will be discussing its hyperinflation curse. Turkey's economy has been on a roller coaster ride in recent years, with ups and downs that have left many scratching their heads. At first, the country seemed to be on an upward trajectory, with a strong growth rate and a booming tourism industry. However, things took a turn for the worse, and the economy started to come down. To understand what happened, we need to take a closer look at the factors that contributed to Turkey's economic rise and fall. In the early 2000s, the Turkish government implemented a series of economic reforms that helped to stabilize the economy and attract foreign investment. This led to a period of rapid growth, with GDP increasing by an average of 5% per year between 2002 and 2017. One of the key drivers of Turkey's economic growth was its tourism industry, which boomed in the 2010s. Millions of tourists flocked to the country every year to soak up the sun, sample the cuisine, and explore the rich history and culture. This helped to create jobs, boost local businesses, and generate revenue for the government. However, in 2018, Turkey's economy started to take a downturn. The country was hit by a currency crisis as the lira lost value against the US dollar and other major currencies. This made imports more expensive and led to inflation, which made it harder for people to afford basic goods and services. How has Turkey's economy gone so wrong? If you've been to Turkey over the last few years, you may have noticed the struggling Turkish lira. Yes, the lira has been in a devaluation spiral, steadily falling in value since 2013 and nosediving even further over the last 12 months. In September 2021, one US dollar was worth around 8 Turkish lira, but by December 2022, this had skyrocketed to nearly 19. Now, one of the main consequences of this devaluation is inflation, and lots of it. When currencies fall in value, things imported from abroad become more expensive. And with most countries importing goods like fuel, materials, and technology, weaker currencies mean higher prices. This has led to record-breaking inflation in Turkey, among the highest rates in Europe. The Turkish Statistical Institute reported that inflation hit a 25-year high of 85.5% in October, though many have claimed the real rate is even higher. Independent analysts at ECONOCAP estimated that the annual CPI inflation was 176.0%. The fall of the lira has also had an impact on Turkish businesses, causing production costs to spike and people's wages to be depleted. The situation is even worse for skilled workers, leading to a devastating brain drain that has the potential to damage Turkey's economy long into the future. But why is this happening? According to Dr. Cem Oyvat, an economics lecturer at the University of Greenwich, part of the problem is Turkey's large current account deficit, meaning it imports more than it exports. But there's more to it than that. When economies grow rapidly, interest rate rises are often used by central banks to cool down the economy. They do this by increasing the cost of borrowing money, which reduces economic activity. However, in Turkey, the opposite has happened. Interest rates have been kept very low by the Turkish central bank, leading the economy to spiral out of control. According to Timothy Ash, an emerging markets expert at Blue Bay Asset Management, it's always running too hot. Growth is too high, domestic demand is too high, and imports are too high. Everything is overheating, which has caused confidence in the economy to collapse, while foreign and local investors have pulled their money out of Turkey due to the lira's free fall. So why are interest rates so low? According to Ash, it's largely due to President Erdogan's unorthodox understanding of monetary policy. In the past, Erdogan won elections by flooding the economy with cheap money. But ultimately, there's a payback. The low interest rates have been beneficial for big funders of Erdogan's AKP party, such as construction and real estate, who can reap more profit from cheaper loans. Erdogan's religious background may also be a factor. As one of the first Turkish leaders to attend a religious vocational school, Imam Hatip has quoted Islam's aversion to usury, which views lending money at interest as sinful, as one of the reasons for lowering interest rates in 2021. What impact has this rapid inflation had on the country's economy? The runaway inflation and collapsing lira have hit the country hard, leaving millions of Turks struggling to make ends meet. It's like a game of financial Jenga, but with every block pulled out, the entire tower collapses. To give you an idea of just how bad it is, a survey by the Yönelim Social Research Center found that more than 2/3 of people in Turkey are struggling to pay for food and rent. That's a lot of people feeling the financial pinch, and it's not just their wallets that are hurting. The surge in mental illness and debt is taking a toll on people's health and well-being. But it's not just individuals that are being hit hard. The collapsing lira has also slammed factories, farmers, and retailers across the country. Production costs have skyrocketed, making it difficult for businesses to make a profit. Farmers are struggling to get by, while retailers are finding it hard to keep prices low enough to attract customers. As Turkey's economic crisis continues to intensify, many are wondering what President Erdogan's response has been. Well, the short answer is that he has doubled down on his approach and remains opposed to higher interest rates. In fact, he recently asserted that he will never compromise on this issue, stating that interest rates make the rich richer and the poor poorer. Erdogan has invoked Islamic precepts against usury and referred to interest charges on loans as the mother and father of all evil. He has also blamed foreign interference for rising prices. However, many analysts believe that such comments are primarily aimed at appealing to more conservative religious segments of the country that represent the core of Erdogan's support. According to Mr. Barki of the Council on Foreign Relations, Turkey's fundamental problem is that it has an overly confident ruler who has been in power for a long time. He believes in his omnipotence and he's making mistakes, Mr. Barki said, but he's so surrounded by yes men that nobody can challenge him. So, what can be done to address this crisis? Well, there are a few things that could help. First and foremost, the government needs to take steps to make the central bank more independent. This would allow the bank to make decisions based on what's best for the economy rather than being influenced by the government. Additionally, the government needs to take steps to address the root causes of the crisis, such as the country's large current account deficit. Erdogan needs to listen to dissenting voices and engage in constructive dialogue with those who have different opinions. The current situation cannot be resolved by doubling down on a single approach. It requires a multifaceted approach that takes into account the views of different stakeholders. Is the situation in Turkey an indication of things to come for the economies of other countries? The situation in Turkey is a complex one, and while it certainly serves as a warning of what can happen when a country's economy spirals out of control, it's not necessarily an indication of things to come for other economies. Each country has its own unique set of circumstances and challenges, and what works for one country may not work for another. However, some lessons can be learned from Turkey's experience. One of the key takeaways is the importance of having an independent central bank. When the government has too much control over the central bank, it can lead to policies that prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability. This can ultimately lead to an economic crisis, as we've seen in Turkey. Another lesson is the importance of addressing structural issues in the economy, such as a large current account deficit. If left unaddressed, these issues can exacerbate economic problems and make it more difficult to recover from a crisis. It's important to have a diverse set of voices in government and to encourage constructive dialogue. When dissenting voices are silenced, it can lead to policies that are not in the best interests of the country as a whole. So, while the situation in Turkey is not necessarily a sign of things to come for other economies, it does highlight the importance of certain principles and practices that can help prevent an economic crisis from occurring. By learning from Turkey's experience, other countries can take steps to ensure their own economic stability and prosperity.